इतना ही लाइट होता है. ओम स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतार वरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः. जननीं शारदां देवीं रामकृष्णं जगद्गुरुं पादपद्मे तयो श्रित्वा प्रणमामि मुहुर्मुहुः. नमः श्री यतिराजाय विवेकानन्दसूरि सच्चित्सुखस्वरूपाय स्वामिने तापहारिणे. So we are in the chapter Kali Temple at Dakshineshwar. It's a very, very important milestone in the history of the Ramakrishna movement itself, we can say, because the whole thing started with the Dakshineshwar Kali Temple. But for that, we would not have had those great details of Sri Ramakrishna sadhana. We really can't even imagine anything in our tradition without first thinking about the Dakshineshwar Kali Temple. Of course, we'll always find that when such great events take place, the divine intervention is kind of felt at every step. It's not that mere someone having money and building a temple. किसी के पास पैसा है, एक बड़ा एक मंदिर खड़ा कर दिया. No. How was it? How did it happen? Regarding Rani Rasmani's dedication ceremony of the Kali temple, the master told us many things on different occasions. Once he said the following: the Rani set a date and made all arrangements for a journey to Varanasi. I mean, he is starting from the beginning, how it all happened. Nearly 100 boats of different sizes were ready at the ghat, loaded with various objects. Because she wanted to spend a huge amount in charity, etc. at Benares. So she had बहुत कुछ चीज संग्रह किया था. In a dream, on the night before her departure, she received the divine command of the goddess. The Rani cancelled her pilgrimage and began to search for a suitable place to establish the temple. There's a saying, the western bank of the Ganges is as holy as Varanasi. With this in mind, the Rani first tried to find land in the villages of Bali and Uttarpara on the west side of the Ganges, but she failed. The Rani offered enormous amounts of money, but out of petty jealousy, the famous landlords refused to sell land to her. Moreover, they even said they would not bathe at a ghat on the Ganges if it was built by anyone else in their jurisdiction. इतनी कट्टरपंथी थे, simply out of jealousy, नहीं दूंगा. So you can imagine what kind of Brahmins they were or what kind of landlords they were. ऐसे कोई अच्छे काम के लिए she was ready to buy the land. It was lying just like that. They could have easily given. बहुत सुंदर एक मंदिर होता था. But you see, they were not destined to have that good fortune, you know. See, even to participate, even to assist, even in any way, it's not a small thing. So we all know the traditional story how a squirrel wanted to help Bhagwan Ramchandra in the building of a bridge. And वो क्या कर पाते थे? Simply 1 or 2 grains of sand he carried for the building of bridge. Then Ramchandra, out of affection, placed his 3 fingers on its back, and they are there as permanent mark. This is what is the story that goes. So the idea is, in any good venture, that is why, when you give money to a good cause, maybe you are not giving the entire amount. Whatever you give ultimately goes to serve a great cause, and that will create samskaras, that will create punya. Your wealth will be put to proper use. There are tremendous advantages in doing such a thing. And once you start giving, then you develop that samskara. You'll always want to be associated. Otherwise, the money would have been spent in a useless manner, in some eating or going here and there or something like that. Instead of that, giving it for a good cause. It's a great idea. Part of the land finally bought this place at Dakshineshwar on the eastern bank of the Ganges. Part of the land at Dakshineshwar, selected by the Rani, had belonged to an Englishman. The other part was an abandoned Muslim graveyard where a Muslim holy man had been buried. The plot was in the shape of a tortoise, kurma, kurma bhumi, tortoise shell high in the center and low around the edges. Such a burial ground, according to the Tantras, is a favorable site on which to establish Mother's temple and perform sadhana. As if guided by providence, the Rani selected this place. See, you see how there is a divine intervention. She chose at some other place. He did not materialize. She offered huge sums of money, but still they were not willing to sell. Finally, it came to this place, and obviously that was the best place because how do you judge it? What happened subsequently? No doubt the temple was established, a huge, gorgeous temple. But the real story, the real truth of Dakshineshwar is Ramakrishna's living there and doing his extraordinary spiritual sadhana. That has set a tradition in motion for thousands of years for devotees to follow. See, there's a great difference between our tradition, with Sri Ramakrishna, and the earlier avatars. See, in the case of Rama or Krishna, we don't get any detailed description about their life of sadhana. But in the case of Sri Ramakrishna, we get all clear details. So obviously, this is a very, very great occasion, very great place, extraordinary in every sense. And what inhuman struggles, what sadhana he did, unimaginable depths of sadhana. So obviously, the place has become extraordinary because of all these associations. So ultimately, what was decided by the Supreme Lord, our goddess Bhavatarani herself, that was really important, and she chose this place. The Rani dedicated the Divine Mother's temple on the day of Snanyatra, the bathing festival of Lord Jagannath, instead of a day deemed by the scriptures to be auspicious for the installation of Shakti. क्योंकि शक्ति मंदिर में कोई प्रतिष्ठा करने के लिए तो विशेष दिन पंजिका से सब लेते हैं ना, दे टेक इट फ्रॉम पंचांगम एक्सेट्रा. But the Rani chose this Snanyatra Deen. Why? From the day the making of the image was began, the Rani practiced severe austerities in accordance with the scriptures. She bathed 3 times a day, ate plain rice with clarified butter, Havishanna, slept on the floor, repeated a mantra, and performed worship according to her capacity. When the temple was completed and the image was ready, the Rani carefully considered an auspicious day for installation. The image was kept packed in a box lest it be broken. Over time, the image began to perspire. See, all these things one might not now say, oh, who saw that and all that. That's not important. But you see, what is falling is definitely important. Over a time, it began to perspire. The Rani received a command in a dream. How long will you keep me confined in this way? I am suffering terribly. Install me as soon as possible. So, Mother herself, see, at every step, the Rani was guided by the Divine Mother that she must establish a temple rather than go to Varanasi, select a site which is suitable for that, how it is to be done, the installation. At every step, the Divine Mother was guiding Rani Rasmani. As soon as she received this command, Rani anxiously consulted the almanac to set an auspicious day for installing the deity. As there was no auspicious date before the Sanyatra, she decided to perform the ceremony on that day. That was the earliest sacred occasion which she could think of for installing the image. Not only you see a kind of harmony there also. It was a Shakti temple, the image of Mother Bhavatarini, but the temple is being consecrated on a day which is very famous for Vishnu or Lord Jagannath. It was his Snana day, Snanyatra, which is a very big festival in Puri. See, from the beginning itself, there's a beautiful blend of ideas, blend of his beliefs, establishing a harmony. We have heard from the master many other stories, including the Rani's dedication of the temple in the name of her guru, so that cooked food could be offered to the goddess. We heard 2 episodes from Hidai. First, Ramkumar granted the Rani a written scripture interpretation to consecrate the temple. Second, Ramkumar had to consult the Dharmapatra, the leaf of impartiality, to convince the master that it is appropriate for him to accept the office of priest. You see, Gadadhar, that is Ramakrishna, had seen how orthodox his father was. He would never accept gifts from a person of a lower caste. It's not because he had any caste feelings or anything. He had himself set such high standards. If you accept gifts from anybody and everybody, your income would grow, obviously. But then, they all believed that when you take something from somebody, at least some samskaras of the person, some karmaful of the person goes to the person who receives the gifts. That's why some sadhus are very, very choosy about accepting pranami or any other gifts from all and sundry. So, obviously, Shudiram Chaturvedya was such an orthodox Brahmin. Although he was poor, he was very, very strict about all these scriptural things. See, the point is, one should follow the dharma meant for your caste. As an orthodox Brahmin, he was sufficient only in very that kind of high caste Brahmin families, and whatever they gave was enough. So, with others saw his brother was directly violating this. So, he did not accept it at all. See, this Dharmapatra is, it's a village custom. When a reasonable discussion can offer no solution to a problem, and then they will resort to the so-called providence. They will write yes or no to know God's will. They will consult the Dharmapatra, the leaf of impartiality. So what is that? They write yes or no on several pieces of paper or bay leaves and put them in a pot, empty water pot, and a child is asked to pick one of them. If she picks the yes leaf, then the person who's done is right. If it is no, the person has to decide against it. Similarly, for division of properties, if there are four brothers, they will divide all the properties into four different sets. They'll name them as A, B, C, D, and the four brothers' names will be there. So it will be two separate pots. One child would pick the one property A, B, or C, or D, and from this pot, another child would pick the name of the brother, the son, and that would go to him. Like that they would. So all would accept. See, the point is, you may say these are all very crude and unorthodox methods and this and that. So the point is how easily they could resolve doubts, disputes. See, life was far more peaceful, no? Now, for a very small thing, you fight up to Supreme Court. It takes 20 years, 25 years. You are totally ruined. The other party is totally ruined. If only we could have some such simple method where such disputes could be resolved very easily, life will be far more easier and smoother, is it not? We understand from the master's conduct at this time that Ramkumar at first had no intention of permanently accepting the office of priest. When we reflect upon this, it seems the simple hearted Ramkumar did not fully understand the situation. He thought that he had sanctioned the cooked food offering to the deity, and that on the consecration day he would perform that service himself and then return to Jamapukur. In addition, from his dealings with the younger brother at this time, we believe Ramkumar was not at all hesitant while offering cooked rice to the deity on that day. He did not think that his actions were in any way contrary to the scriptures because he had thought and given a written opinion. It can be, if it is donated to a Brahmin, he becomes the owner and he has the right to offer. Since the Brahmin was the owner of the temple, Ramkumar did the consecration and he had no problem in partaking of the sacred food or prasada that was offered to the deity. Early next morning after consecration, Master returned to Dakshineshwar to inquire about his elder brother. He was also curious about the activities that would take place after the dedication. वो तो कुछ नहीं जानते थे. He stayed at the temple compound for some time. Before he realized there was no possibility of his elder brother returning to Jamapukur that day. Naturally, the previous day the consecration was done. A lot of other things remained to be settled on the next day. So naturally, Ramkumar was still very busy. Although Ramkumar asked him to remain in Dakshineshwar, he did not obey. Instead, he returned to Jamapukur for his meal. The master did not return to Dakshineshwar for nearly a week. He stayed at Jamapurku, thinking that his elder brother would come back when it was appropriate after finishing the responsibilities at Dakshineshwar. When Ramkumar did not come home even after a week, the master grew anxious and returned to Dakshineshwar to find out what had happened to his brother. He learned that at Rani's fervent request, Ramkumar had agreed to be the permanent peace of the Divine Mother. All this news, the master's mind whirled with thoughts. He tried to dissuade Ramkumar from his commitment by reminding him that their father had never officiated for lower caste, nor had he accepted gifts indiscriminately. It is said that Ramkumar explained his master in various ways using scripture and other reasoning, but when nothing touched his brother's heart, he finally adopted the simple method of using a Dharmapatra. It is said the following was inscribed on the Dharmapatra. Ramkumar's acceptance of the office of priest cannot be condemned, it will be beneficial to all. So this was the decision of the providence or God. So now Gadadhar had no objection because this has come. It was not his brothers. See what the is the anxiety was relieved. Then with the school closed, what was he going to do? वो तो वहाँ कुछ नहीं करेंगे. Absorbed in that thought, he did not return to Jamapur that day. Rakuman asked him to take prasad from the temple, but he refused. Rakuman tried to persuade him in various ways, saying this is a temple and the food has been cooked with Ganges water, but it has been offered to the Divine Mother. It won't do any harm to eat it. But this argument did not convince the master. Then Rakuman said, well, you can take uncooked provisions from the temple stores and cook your own meal on the bank of the Ganges under the Panchavati. Don't you agree that everything is pure on the bank of the Ganges? The master's deep devotion to the Ganges defeated strict observance regarding food. His faith accomplished what Ramkumar, well versed in the scriptures, could not do through reasoning. जितने भी तर्क दिया स्क्रिप्चर से कोट किया लेकिन Gadadhar hila nahi. Finally, when he brought about the Ganges, then he was moved. हाँ अभी ठीक है. Then he accepted. मैं वहाँ से provisions लेके बना के खा लूँगा. The master agreed and remained in Dakshineshwar, living on food he cooked himself. You see, slowly, how the Divine Mother is dragging his most favorite son or child to her bosom. First, he was totally against even coming. He went back. Then he started staying. He was dead against Ramkumar officiating. That was got over. Then he did not want to take food. Then he accepted the idea that he will take provisions and cook. Finally, as a why you will take only that prasad. And not only that, to other orthodox disciples like Hari and others, Gangadhar, he would say, this is most sacred. Mother's prasad should not have any objection. They all took. So what started with a great sense of defiance, where he was not willing to consider anything, turned out to be something totally different. We ourselves actually observe the master's lifelong deep devotion to Ganges. He used to say, the ever-poor Brahman has been transformed to the Ganges to purify all beings. So the Ganges is truly Brahman in the form of water. Gangavari, Brahmavari, हमेशा कहते थे. तो कई बार उनका ऐसे गंगा जी में जाके नहाना संभव नहीं था. But they'll bring water from Ganges in a bucket and he will bathe in that water. The minds of all who live on the bank of the Ganges become divine, and the spiritual intelligence of these people manifests spontaneously. The air filled with the moisture of the Ganges purifies the land as far as it blows. जितनी दूर तक वो हवा जा सकती है उतना पवित्र कर दी. The people who live in that area, endowed with good conduct, devotion to God, steadfastness, generosity, and austerity, by the grace of the Ganges, the daughter of the great Himalayas. If anybody had talked for a long time about worldly things and associated with the worldly people, the master would say, go and drink a little Ganges water. If godless, worldly man polluted any spot of the temple complex by thinking of mundane things, the master would sprinkle Ganges water there. He was distressed if anyone washed himself with Ganges water after answering the call of nature. सब मानते थे गंगा जी का pavitrata. See, Bharat may be most of our all the sadhus, wandering monks, they all used to live on the bank of the river only. Because उसी समय नल का पानी all those vyavasthas were not there. So they live on the bank of the Ganges, take bath, and then go for bhiksha, come. That's how their life used to be. So the Ganga ki tat was very famous for many, many serious sadhakas and sadhus. Similarly, Brahmaputra, all the major rivers, their river banks were famous for uh, these type of wandering monks who would stay, bathe in those waters, and then beg their food and continue like that. The environment of the temple garden of Dakshineshwar brought about a change in the master's mind. He saw the panoramic garden on the bank of the Ganges with a Panchavati grove that resounded with the songs of birds. He observed the worship services expertly performed in the vast temple by devout priests. He received genuine affection from his virtuous father-like elder brother, and also love and respect from the devoted and pious Rani Rasmini and her son Mathur. So the master came to regard the temple of Dakshineshwar as fondly as home in Kamarpukur. Although for some time he cooked his own meals while he lived there, he was happy and able to set aside his indecision regarding the future. Learning the master's rigid observance regarding food, some may comment that kind of narrow orthodoxy is common among ordinary human beings like ourselves. In reference to the master's life, however, do we mean to imply that one cannot attain the highest spirituality without becoming similarly conservative? We say in reply, narrow orthodoxy and steadfastness in religion are not the same thing. The first trait originates from ego. Normally, people who claim to be orthodox, they are very egoistic. They they violate many other things. But as far as this is concerned, they always think that it is they are very, you know, they think that they are doing the right thing. It's all largely out of their own ego. But whereas orthodoxy is something very different. Uh, that's a important thing. Uh, so once again, but in Master's case, see, the second trait originates from faith in the scriptures and then in the teachings of great souls. See, when orthodoxy prevails, people consider whatever they know and do to be the best, and thus hold themselves aloof from others, circumscribing their activities. मैं ये नहीं करूंगा, वो नहीं करूंगा, ये नहीं करूंगा. कई बार रीजन भी नहीं जानते. क्यों करते हैं? जानते नहीं. But simply they do because somebody had said, they think it's a question of their ego, why I'm superior to others. Quite often these orthodox people, they have a sense of superiority. But Thakur was never like that. He considered himself the humblest of the humble. Remember even that famous incident when Girish Ghosh came, he offered, Girish Ghosh said like that, Master, फिर सिर नीचा करके इतना अंत में किया, then finally Girish Ghosh accepted defeat. No, I cannot compete with you in humility. So he was always like that. He was the humblest of persons, although he was from such an orthodox family. He went and cleaned the washroom, etc., of Rasik Mathur. So in his case, it was not narrow orthodoxy, but it was steadfastness to certain customs which he had inherited from his father and which is definitely supported by scriptures. See, the scriptures always say all these regulations are prescribed so that life doesn't become easy going. See, if you weed out, you cannot take gifts, you cannot do this, you cannot do that, their life largely becomes very austere. Is it not? When you don't, supposing you say every day after 3 hours of prayer and meditation only I will take breakfast. Obviously you become austere, you become restricted in your habits. Otherwise 5 बजे से चाय, then 6 बजे चाय, फिर 7 बजे कुछ, 8 बजे कुछ, 9 बजे कुछ, ऐसे लेते रहते. So any orthodoxy, any practice, anything that we commit to will definitely improve your spiritual life and make you more austere, make you very restricted. आपका जीवन में संयम आ जाएगी. So This one, when it prevails, uh, a person curbs his ego, makes progress in spiritual life, and gradually realizes supreme truth. In the beginning, such a person may appear to be too conservative, but this orthodoxy helps that person to gradually reach higher and higher planes in the spiritual journey so that the limitations of orthodoxy drop off automatically. Sri Ramakrishna did not have to give up orthodoxy by force. Naturally, he dropped off to such an extent. Only from that he could take in during Tantra Sadhana and all what all he did at the instructions of Bhairavi Brahmani. So everything was possible, but it all happened spontaneously. As he progressed more and more in spiritual life, it was possible for him to undertake more and more such decisions, and all orthodoxy completely dropped off. Finally, he was truly universal and everything was okay. See, for example, when he did the Islam sadhana, he refused to go to temple. He would never go. He got his food prepared in an Islamic way, or like Muslims do, by engaging a separate cook, a Brahmin cook, no doubt. But the food was like that. So during his intense preoccupation with Christianity, he did not go to the temple at all. So, his orthodoxy and all that, they were all related to his sadhana. As he progressed more and more deeply into spiritual life, everything fell off by itself. He didn't have to give it up by force. Steadfastness in the spiritual life, spiritual path is therefore absolutely necessary. As we observe the every process in the master's life, we learn that we must proceed through the experiences of spiritual truths by strictly following the injunctions of the scriptures. Only then will be endowed with true Catholicity and attain supreme peace in the course of time. So initially, one has to follow all that. So otherwise, how do you start? In the beginning, if you disregard all scriptural injunctions, all restrictions, then it will be a life of go as you like. There won't be any sadhana, there won't be any intensity. Thakur says, when the plant is saying it has to be hedged, protected. In all this sense, you cannot allow other influences to come in. It has to be very strictly monitored. It has to be strictly according to Guru's instruction, according to the path you are following. Then Ramakrishna started like that, but then went on to experience every spiritual truth to the highest order, slowly over a period of time. But in the initial stage itself, if you disregard everything, and live a life in the name of liberality, do whatever you like, that's not proper. So it's always good to follow the tradition, be orthodox, taking bath, putting fresh clothes, then visiting the temple, sitting, doing your japa, meditation, etc. Then many are very strict. Without doing certain amount of japa, etc., they won't even have water. Somewhere we should bind ourselves initially to start with, to regulate our life. Otherwise, nothing will happen in spiritual life. We have to be extremely strict, extremely, driven by system, guru's instructions, etc. Then finally, okay, when you have progressed beyond a certain point, then it's no longer necessary for you to have any restriction and this or that. Automatically, all will go away. As the master used to say, if a thorn gets stuck in your foot, use another thorn to pry it out. In order to reach the Catholicism of truth, you must be firm in religious steadfastness. You have to follow the disciplines and rules in order to reach the state beyond disciplines and rules. Yes, only through disciplines you can go beyond disciplines. If you are never disciplined at all, how will you really go beyond? You are not going beyond disciplines. You are indisciplined. In the beginning itself, if you don't follow any discipline, say for example, when you have to, say when we are working as volunteers in Chennai Mat, a great sadhu was the president of the Chennai Mat, Kailash Anandji Maharaj. He was Mahapurush Maharaj's disciple, a favorite disciple of Mahapurush. He was a brilliant academic career. He was a gold medalist from Dhaka University. So we'll all work in the science store, but very strict rules. We cannot talk we're cutting fruits or we're arranging the Naivedya. Because if you talk, then your Uchishta will fall on the offerings inadvertently. So he was very, very strict. And also, I still remember when you peel the orange, you always see, in the orange, that pieces behind this white fiber like. He says we should never use nails to pick it out. Only by the soft portion of the fingers, those fibers have to be taken out. That much strictness. And while if you have to adjust your cloth, you have to do like that. You cannot touch the cloth and then touch. See, you may say, what is all that? Yes, one can say there's nothing in all that. So what happens, that means you are very, very careful. You are alert. You are thinking that this is Lord's offering. I should not make it contaminated or impure in any way. These are very important. No? These are very, very, very important. So later on, it's okay. But initially, all only after taking bath, after this, putting on fresh clothes, then only you would enter even the shrine store. I see in many other places, the volunteers, they come start the work, etc. Go back and take bath later. No, the Chennai Math first to take bath, change clothes, fresh clothes, then enter the shrine store. Then only you are allowed. And they will cutting fruits and arranging the offerings. These are the conditions. See, there is a purpose why all these are all done. Observing that kind of imperfection in the early life of Master, some may comment, why then do you call him an incarnation of God rather than a man? If you want to make him a God, it is better to conceal those imperfections or your purpose won't be easily served. Some might say, after all, he's an incarnation of God. Can he have all those imperfections? If you say he is a human being, ordinary person, then it's okay. If you say God, he cannot have any such imperfection. Why don't you hide all that? Then your purpose will not be served. We say, brother, there was a time when we couldn't believe in our dreams that it would be possible for God to come down to this earth and assume a human body. When the Master, out of his unbounded grace, made us understand this was possible, we realized that since he had assumed a human body, he had to accept the imperfections of the mind as well as the body. So, this is very, very important. You know, see, this is a very, very, a very important point. So, when God incarnates at earth, does he not have any imperfection at all? Does he not accept? See, once you have a human body, human mind, there will be some humanness in it. So that cannot be denied. In fact, that adds beauty and grandeur to the concept of incarnation. See, the point is, if we remove all that, that will certainly happen after 500 years. Those who are going to write Sri Ramakrishna's life, they will say that, he did not need any vehicle from Dakshineswar to Balramadi's house. He could go by the Gagan Marg. He could fly and land there. Normally, all kinds of things might be written after 500 years or 1000 years. But we are very near the physical incarnation of God on earth. So obviously, if one is very truthful, as Sharat Maharaj is, one has to clearly say, this is this, this is this. Let the reader judge for himself or herself whether he is really an incarnation or God on earth, and whether it is worth following his advice, his commands, his suggestions, his guidance, etc. Let, let the individual decide for himself or herself. There's no need to conceal anything. So whenever there's an incarnation of God on earth, there will be certainly certain human imperfections. For example, if you see in Ramchandra's life, why did he hide himself and kill Vali? He could have killed Vali by his mere wish, but yet he hid himself and shot an arrow, and two others were fighting. You can't hide yourself and kill somebody. However much one might explain, obviously there's a divine angle to it probably, but then from the human side, it's an imperfection. Similarly, even after all that she undertook, Sita was again asked to do Agni Pariksha. So, there are so many explanations. But from the human point of view, these might be considered as imperfections. Similarly, when in the life of Krishna, he clearly did something, virtually like falsehood to create an artificial sunset so that Arjuna could kill Jayadratha. Similarly, in the case of Karna, he made, the Arjuna's Ratha sink a few inches so that the astras which Karna shot did not hit him. And then finally, when Karna cut down his the chakra, the wheel of his Ratha was caught, in the mud. He got down to repair. At that time, he asked Arjuna to kill him. In case of Dronacharya, it was a sheer lie. So obviously, the avatars, when they come down to the earth with a human body, there will be signs of human imperfection. But these do not deter in any way the greatness of the avatar. Ultimately, what you have to see, instead of paying attention to these simple minor details, what is really important is their spiritual luminosity, their spiritual excellence. The sadhana Sri Ramakrishna did. Is it of any help to us? What does it matter whether he took food here or there or did not take food at all? These things do not matter. They are very, very insignificant. We should not lose ourselves in such minor details and lose the real track. The real importance is how was he as far as sadhana was concerned? What all he did? Can we do even a fraction of it? Because our life is not to find justification. Our life is not to declare to the world that Sri Ramakrishna is an avatar. What does it matter to us whether he was an avatar or not? Does it matter to me as far as my sadhana is concerned? Is it going to help me find my ultimate goal of life or the discovery of the ultimate truth? So the sadhana, the methodology, the marga shown by him, is it useful? That is important. These are all unimportant. So we should be very careful not to lose ourselves in such discussions which are of a very, what should I say, of least importance. He himself says, see, we never believed in our dreams that it's possible for God to come down to earth and assume a human body. See, we talk of Rama, we talk of Krishna, etc. But these are all based on such flimsy faith. Any time they can be smashed. Simply, we are imposing upon our minds again and again, no, he is God, he is God, he is God, you worship him, thousands, lakhs of people are worshipping, that's okay. But in what way, how is it, have you seen that? Have you really realized in any way? Have you really felt it in any way? So, normally, even of course, can we really believe that God can take a human form and come to the earth? But because Sri Ramakrishna had himself, out of his boundless grace, had revealed himself to these disciples, at least his monastic disciples, that he was God incarnate on earth. There were innumerable occasions when they tangibly felt his extraordinary spiritual power. He could, in seconds, read anybody's thought. He could uplift anybody's mind in a matter of seconds. His very touch, his very presence would elevate you and take you to extraordinary levels of spirituality. These were important. So, not only that, through his grace, Thakur had really revealed to these disciples that he was God incarnate on earth. If you don't mix gold with an alloy, you can't shape it into an ornament. So Thakur used to give a beautiful idea. See, supposing you have 24 karat gold, you cannot make ornaments. That's why they mix a little copper or something and make it 22 karat gold. Then only it's possible to make ornaments out of it. Likewise, it's impossible to form the body and mind without mixing the impurities of rajas and tamas with pure sattva. Sattva, rajas, tamas, all the three will be there in any body, in any personality. But in the case of such people, it's 99.99% sattva, 0.00005 rajas, maybe 0.00005 tamas. But there will be a little mixture. Otherwise, you cannot be on earth, you cannot do anything, nothing is possible. Nothing is possible at all. He never hesitated to describe his imperfections to us. And he told us clearly over and over again. He was born as Rama and Krishna in the past ages, has now come into this case, pointing his own body. Thakur never hid his imperfections, his preference, maybe his liking of jalebi or whatever it is, his love for some devotees, how he was very much extremely affectionate towards Narendra. There are all reasons, but you can say he was not absolutely impartial. He was more uh, loving to some disciples and all that. So, in some way or other, all this can be pointed out. But Ramakrishna had clearly told them over and again, he was born as Rama and Krishna in the past. As in this case, this he pointing out his own body has now come as Ramakrishna. But this time he has come in disguise as the king, which is the capital incognito. It is like that. So he says, but in this case, he has come incognito without revealing himself. Because those who used to go to Dakshineshwar without any introduction, they'll be thinking that he is some Mali or some servant or something. They will ask, where is Ramakrishna Paramsa? He went to himself. Because there was no outward show. Neither did he have that glamorous look or anything. Even that it was there to some extent, but then he got it removed because once he was starting from Kamarpukur to Shihor or somebody, the Palki had come. So many people had gathered. Then he asked there, why such a gathering? They want to see you. They admire you. So when you're getting into the Palki or so, they will see. Oh, then thought it is his body. And he said, go inside, Andarja, Andarja, Andarja. Then he lost all that. They say he had a golden complexion. It was virtually like that. All that went inside. And he had the very ordinary look. That's why he says, in those days, they say the Rajas used to tour the country incognito so that no one knows that Raja is coming. They were so caring of their prajas, of the citizens. They would go incognito to find out whether people are getting everything, whether all services are being rendered, and so on and so forth. It's just like that. God has come incognito without revealing. There is no Sankar Chakra Gada Padma, nor is there Dhanush and Ban. Nothing. Very ordinary, like humblest of the humble, but yet supremely illumined in a spiritual sense. That was Ramakrishna. Therefore, we shall try to record everything we know about the Master. So that's why it said that is the most authentic life story of Sri Ramakrishna, this Leela Prasanga, which our Sharat Maharaj has written so wonderfully for our sake. See, when you read everything, if you're a true sadhaka, as you read more and more, slowly you will realize the extraordinary nature of the Master's life and you'll be definitely impressed. O reader, accept whatever you consider believable and reasonable. And if you censure us for the rest, we shall not censure us for the rest, we shall not mind. Whatever is possible, you accept. But some things you don't like to accept, doesn't matter. You don't mind at all. He says. Naturally, Ramkrishna always used to say, Lajamude badhiye, leave the head and the tail and take the rest. That used to be the core portion of a fish. So the idea is, as the point is, if you become more and more a sincere sadhaka, you'll realize his extraordinary life is sadhana and benefit from it. These other details are supremely insignificant and do not need at all. Anyway, just for the sake of reading, just for understanding the life details, we may read all that. But in reality, these are not required at all because what we really want to know ultimately, because then it will be a very, very small uh, biography. No, if you only write his sadhana and how he inspired devotees, no. Satmaraj has taken pain to describe everything, all that he did. And finally, the culmination. So when you read the whole thing, and when you read also the gospel, you understand his extraordinary nature and you try to do sadhana and benefit from it. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat. Shri Ram Krishna Arpanamastu. हो गया